The past is known, the present is recognized, the future is divined. Friedrich Schelling. Welcome back to this two-part exploration of divination and the ancient arts of tarot, astrology, numerology, and Kabbalah. In part one of this series, Ancient Arts for Modern Self-Knowledge, I discussed how these four arts can be used as powerful instruments of self-reflection. If you haven't seen part one yet, you might like to go back and watch that first, or afterwards. Whatever you do, I respect your freedom in any case. In that video, I made the case that, rather than being tools for mere fortune-telling, these arts provide an intricate map of the human experience and can facilitate powerful insights into the nature and composition of our own psyche. I also explained how it is not possible to correctly apply the divination arts whilst viewing them solely through a materialist lens. In particular, without some appreciation of the unconscious mind, the true usefulness of these arts will be greatly impaired. Materialism is nonetheless the predominant worldview in the Western world today, and it makes little room for an understanding of the mystical within its own bounds. But if both rationality and spirituality hold value towards our developments and for navigating life's challenges, then there must be some truth in both. Rather than compartmentalize, like a chemistry professor who partitions his religious life to Sundays, we do well to integrate and reconcile our apparent contradictions in true Hegelian fashion. The challenges of our times demand that the mystical be regarded not as something to be cast out, a mere relic of a less enlightened time, but to be synthesized and reintegrated in light of what we have since come to learn. If we don't, then, as Jung said, the world must perforce act out the conflict and be torn into opposite halves. The unconscious will eventually come knocking, forcing situations and experiences upon us, which shatter our tightly held beliefs and assumptions in its need to become realized. In the words of Marie-Louise von Franz, we know that, ultimately, all conflicts are created not only by, let us say, a wrong conscious attitude, but by the unconscious itself, in order to reunite the opposites on a higher level. If this goes too far, however, then one gets into a split situation and experiences such a tension of opposites that one completely loses his inner balance and even his capacity for survival. And yet, if we embrace these unseen parts of ourselves, we will eventually be glad that they showed up, not only surviving, but enjoying greater freedom and alignment with our true selves. In overcoming such conflicts, it is necessary, I believe, for each individual to do their own philosophy, to develop a model of reality that can meaningfully support them through their current challenges, whilst continually reworking and updating it as they progress through life and discover more of themselves. The challenges our own minds bring about will naturally compel this process, since, as cautioned by Schelling, the moment one believes to have completed their system, they become unbearable to themselves and cease to be a creator, but an instrument of their own creation. It is contingent on our conscious selves to work through our challenges in support of our ongoing self-realization, rather than perpetually push them away, insisting on fixed ideas and models and the denial of mystery. Must everything we believe, or rather behave as though we believe, be absolutely true in order for us to do so? Or just true enough to be able to navigate our current stage of existence? Is anything we believe truly immutable? As it stands, there are many valid criticisms of the divination arts, particularly when approached from an otherwise materialist perspective. These arts can play a vital role in each person's pursuit of self-knowledge, and it is helpful to consider these objections in working through any conflict one might have in honouring them and all they have to offer. With that said, the aim of this video is not to definitively close the case on the esoteric arts, or to fully explain the mechanisms behind how they work, but to offer some reflections for navigating this dialectic of rationality and mystery within yourself. Building upon the ideas explored in part one, including materialism, idealism, and the role of the unconscious mind, this video encourages you to explore the question for yourself. Is divination real? Is there some truth to it? Or is it just superstition? The Barnum Effect. We will start by addressing one of the most common objections to the arts, such as tarot and astrology. That is, the Barnum Effect. This idea can be understood by anyone who's ever read a superficial magazine horoscope and seen it for what it was. The Barnum Effect refers to the tendency of people to accept general or vague characterizations of themselves and consider them to be accurate. It is named after 19th century showman Phineas Barnum, who had a reputation for his ability to craft statements and presentations that felt personally meaningful to a wide audience. Noting a resemblance in the descriptors offered by many psychometric reports, psychologist Paul Meehl in 1956 suggested that we adopt the phrase Barnum Effect to stigmatize those pseudo-successful clinical procedures in which personality descriptions from tests are made to fit the patient largely or wholly by virtue of their triviality. A common criticism of divination arts, such as tarot and astrology, is that they rely heavily on this effect, producing readings that are so broad or ambiguous that they could apply to many people in many situations. For example, by telling you you are a sociable person, or that you have an eye for detail. You are just seeing yourself in the reading, one might say, your own ideas, beliefs, and assumptions. Now, someone familiar with the workings of the unconscious mind would simply agree. You do indeed see yourself in divinatory readings and charts, and that is in fact their purpose. However, they would go one further by saying that the you that you are seeing encompasses far more than the conscious ego and your sense of I, and that this is anything but trivial. The content of the unconscious mind is vast, with the conscious ego representing just the tip of the iceberg. With this understanding, the divination arts become a tool for reflecting aspects of ourselves and the wider reality that we are not conscious of. While it is a natural function of the human mind to project and manifest aspects of ourselves and the wider unconscious into our experience, it would be a mistake to assume that we fully understand what those projections are and how they manifest in our lives. Gaining insight and coming to know ourselves involves becoming ever more conscious of the specific dynamics and forces at play within our own lives and interpersonally. The divination arts, used correctly, can be immensely valuable in shedding light on these intricate aspects of our existence. It is true that, in principle, all people can recognize aspects of themselves in any and all divinatory descriptors. After all aspects of personality and experience, as reflected in the arts, do indeed apply to all people to some degree. The Barnum Effect therefore presents a valid concern around irresponsible or careless application of the arts. However, reflecting generic traits common to all individuals is not where the true utility of divination lies. There are real differences between people that can be usefully mapped, and which, when we do, through reason and experience, we come to a more sophisticated understanding of ourselves and others. From possibilities to potential. For us to appreciate the true usefulness of the divination arts, it can help us to delineate these differences between people more precisely. To this end, there are 4 categories that I find useful as a way to think about traits, as well as the evolution of an individual's traits throughout the journey of individuation. These 4 categories are as follows. 1. Possibilities. Character traits that are sometimes exhibited, or have some theoretical potential to be exhibited under certain conditions. Essentially, this is all traits in all people. 2. Tendencies of behaviour. These are differentiated behaviours, often influenced by expectations placed upon us, and not necessarily how we would naturally prefer to behave. 3. Preferences. Often quite distinct from tendencies, character traits that we have a leaning or a preference towards. Also a differentiated behaviour, but not necessarily how we tend to behave when under perceived expectations of others. 4. Individuated. Traits that are an authentic reflection of our whole undivided nature and the unique value that we have to offer. These are consistent with Jung's ideas on the transcendent function and involve a synthesis of our core qualities and their opposites. These 4 categories of traits and behaviour are just conceptual, and while there is overlap between all 4, it's helpful to be able to distinguish between them. This distinction helps us understand that while everyone has the free will to exhibit any behaviour, at least fleetingly, this is not the same as having an inherent talent, preference, or it being exhibitive of your whole and unified personality. These 4 categories of traits also outline the evolution of one's awareness of their traits through the process of individuation. Initially, it may be tempting to identify with just about every possible description found in one's astrological or tarot birth charts, at least the flattering ones. We might recall situations when we have behaved in an outgoing way, an introverted way, an energetic way, times we were emotional, times we were contemplative, and times when we performed some physical skill. All of these are aspects of everyone's character. Beyond that, however, one notices certain prevailing tendencies, and they would be forgiven for identifying with those tendencies. However, our tendencies, particularly in the first half of life, are often shaped by external expectations, from family, friends, culture, and the workplace. We may behave in ways that align with how others see us, or how we believe they expect us to behave. Furthermore, all traits can be expressed in both wholesome and unwholesome or ego-defensive ways. This is just one reason why two individuals who share aspects of a chart but who choose to channel their traits differently can appear very distinct from each other. Growing into the true self requires us to use our preferred traits consciously and non-defensively. That, in turn, is predicated on the integration of our opposing aspects that have been hidden in the unconscious. This journey is a constant evolution. It never asks the same task of us 2 days in a row. Individuation calls on us to embrace our core qualities reflected in our tarot or astrological charts and personality type, whilst also learning to mitigate their pitfalls and avoid using them in a one-sided or ego-defensive way. Therefore, any kind of divinatory report or birth chart is not best thought of as a prescriptive assessment of who you are, but as a reflection of the archetypal forces and potential within your life. A birth chart, remaining consistent throughout one's life, cannot reveal anything about an individual's current stage of developments or the extent to which they have integrated its various facets. This is another key reason why two people with similar features in their charts can manifest these traits very differently. So it is entirely possible that someone might identify with any and all aspects of any description due to the Barnum Effect, but their inclination to do so depends on their degree of self-awareness, their prevailing intention, and their willingness to take responsibility for their mind. Uncovering deeper truths. Clearly, the divination arts cannot be approached or function like a science in the modern materialist sense, which relies on testability and repeatability. The essence of symbolism, representing intangible ideas, inherently involves variability and non-repeatability, with the same underlying principles manifesting in a potentially infinite multitude of ways. This truth is the very basis for Jung's theories of the collective unconscious and the archetypes, as well as the hero's journey as depicted by Joseph Campbell. It is the reason we enjoy myths, stories, and movies, why there are certain storytelling formulas that resonate more than others, and why not all art is created equal. We can also discern this truth from our dreams, where it is uncommon for the same principle to manifest in identical form more than once. Instead, the same themes tend to reappear and play out in new symbolic forms, offering diverse avenues for our conscious selves to engage with them. In much the same way, different people who share certain influences in their birth charts will all embody that energy in very different ways. For example, let's consider 3 individuals who each share the 4 of discs as their purpose card in their tarot birth charts, symbolizing material security, work, and ownership. One might build a career as a dentist with their own successful local practice, another as a corporate accountant, and a third might be perfectly content in a modest manual job that allows for control and self-sufficiency. While these paths all appear very different, they could all be expressions of the same energy, represented by the 4 of discs. Now contrast all 3 of these individuals to a 4th individual whose purpose card is, say, the 2 of swords, symbolizing balance, fairness, and grace. By observing the differences between their life and character and those of the first 3, you might get a clearer sense of the underlying essence that unifies the 3. Noting differences between multiple people who share the same significators in their charts, rather than being proof of their inaccuracy, can actually be a powerful means to understand the deeper, non-prescriptive essence of what a chart or reading truly reflects. Written descriptions, offered in reports, books, readings, or anywhere, are at best indicative of the kinds of ways in which an energy in your chart might manifest. They are best not taken prescriptively, but used as signposts for insight into what really lies beneath them. Many people find they are not living in alignment with their significators, such as their star sign, rising sign, purpose card, destiny card, or their numerological forecast over time. Understanding these discrepancies and what living authentically without conflict might look like is a key element in coaching and shadow work, and for which the divination arts can serve an invaluable role. You are not your chart. Another important consideration is that every individual represents a myriad of influences, far beyond what can be captured by a star sign or birth chart. A birth chart cannot delineate every nuance of an individual, and neither is it intended to. Descriptions and symbols are manifestations of this deeper essence, and no individual can be wholly captured by them, not in language, and not even in a series of meaningful images, as offered by the tarot. As rich and helpful as symbolic images are, these too are derivatives of the wholeness and realness that is there. Nonetheless, many of the manifest differences between individuals who share elements in their charts can be seen in the differences between their charts. In tarot birth chart reports offered by Make It Conscious, the purpose card is often of particular interest because it is a card that you share with less than 3% of the global population. This card on its own provides a fairly nuanced and meaningful depiction of a key force at play in your life and character, influencing your specific gifts and challenges. Each tarot birth chart report also includes a list of notable individuals who share your purpose card, which can be insightful as a way to glean the deeper essence of your card and how it influences you and famous people who share it. Standardisation in the arts. So far, we've seen that viewing the divination arts through a purely scientific lens is not the correct way to understand them, not because they cannot be understood, and not because there is something inherently wrong with the scientific method, but because such an approach imposes inappropriate presumptions into our understanding of these arts. With that all said, it is true that a certain degree of correctness and standardization is necessary in the application of the divination arts. There are valid criticisms around their lack of standardization. For example, the existence of multiple kinds of tarot deck, various astrological systems, and different calculation methods in numerology. In a sense, one can see themselves in anything. A Rorschach test, tea leaves, the palm of their hand, a walk down the street, the markings on the ground. The human mind can make meaning out of anything, and this is how a healthy mind is supposed to work. For those on a deliberate path of self-knowledge, seeking meaning and to discover themselves through experience, everyday life is like a tarot reading. Synchronicities abound. However, for tools of divination, the four divination arts, to effectively facilitate this journey, it's crucial that they accurately and comprehensively reflect the nature of human experience as it is, and in its most essential form. For this reason, not all attempts to create tools of divination are carried out with equal integrity. The best approach is one that respects their symbolic accuracy while remaining sufficiently non-prescriptive. Maintaining this middle has been the art and skill of the custodians of the divination arts throughout the ages, and the measure by which they have been successful. In the tarot, such contributions in recent times have been made by the likes of Arthur E. Waite, who is renowned for creating the well-known Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, featuring the artwork of Pamela Coleman Smith. Similarly, Aleister Crowley made a significant impact with the creation of the Thoth tarot deck, in collaboration with artist Lady Frida Harris. These figures have been instrumental in shaping modern tarot. Their contributions, especially the distinctive styles and interpretations of the Rider-Waite and Thoth decks, have greatly influenced contemporary tarot readings and the symbolism used within them. There are many factors in what constitutes a correct and standardized divinatory tool. Key aspects include the 3x4 nature of the psyche, which aligns with the 12 signs of the zodiac, representing the 4 modalities of consciousness, each divided into 3 distinct states, which we discussed in part 1. We also touched on psychological time and the unfolding of all creation into distinct, logically progressing phases, as mapped in numerology, the path of the fall, as symbolized by the 22 major arcana of the tarot, the numerical sequence of the minor arcana, which map onto the Kabbalistic tree of life, and the 16 court cards, symbolic of the multitude of traits that exist in every individual. Another important connection emerges when we consider that the sum of all numbers up to 12, representing the 4 modalities across 3 states, equals 78, the exact number of cards in a tarot deck. This is no coincidence, but a reflection of the intricate and interconnected nature of these divination systems, where every element mirrors aspects of human consciousness and experience. Given all these factors, there is bound to be variation in standards across practice of the divination arts. Many of these are indeed born out of a misunderstanding of the arts, their workings, and the structure of mind. However, even among dedicated students of the arts, there are naturally differences of interpretation, as exemplified by the visual and structural differences between the Rider-Waite and Thoth tarot decks, for example. This is ultimately the nature of dealing with subjective matters. Final thoughts. This video has aimed to show why the divination arts are not necessarily going to produce linear, direct, unambiguous answers to questions in the manner of a scientific experiment, or in the way that the analytical mind wants, and neither is that their purpose. Instead, divination serves as a powerful tool for facilitating self-knowledge and insight into the unconscious. The four arts provide a framework for exploring and realizing yourself, rather than for prescribing who you are. The divination arts can be used as a reflective aid, helping you to deepen your relationship with yourself, resolve conflicts, and engage your whole self in decision-making, leading you in the direction of growth and full self-realization. Ultimately, you is not something that can be fully encapsulated by a set of cards or an astrological chart. These are representations, signposts to an underlying reality that they can never completely capture. Even the symbols within these practices, and the words we use to describe them, could only point to deeper truths. It is this underlying reality that is ultimately realized through the journey of self-discovery and introspection that divination facilitates. Like a good counselor, the real gift of the divination arts does not lie in simply echoing what we already know or want to hear. Instead, their value lies in their ability to help us access the answers inside of ourselves. This process is predicated on our willingness to take responsibility for our minds and challenges, to make our own decisions, resolve what needs to be resolved, and to seek guidance into our psychological landscape. To do otherwise would be to deprive us of the journey and benefits of individuation. When faced with a chart, a reading, or a synchronistic experience, we might ask, what does it mean? But a more useful question would be, what does it represent? Or even, what does it reflect about my mind? This applies not just to the practice of divination, but any meaningful experience or synchronicity. Like with any discussion, there is truth on both sides of the "is divination real" dialectic. There are legitimate concerns into the workings of divination and the ways it is practiced. There are also profoundly useful applications of divination when approached correctly and with an appreciation of psychological realities and the individuation process. In my own life, there have been countless occasions when I have struggled to find the answer to things I did not need to know but wanted to. But there has never been a time when, with the right tools and intention, I have not been able to find the answers that I needed. Life has to be a journey, and that always entails mystery. If we can let go of the need to know all of its secrets right now, we'll find ourselves better equipped to take just that one key step in the direction we need to go. With all that said, as you continue your exploration of the unconscious, you'll find that divination arts can be an integral part of this process, offering indispensable insights and guidance. If you'd like to discover which cards are in your own tarot birth charts, you can learn more at makeitconscious.com or click the link in the description. I also recommend checking out the playlist of active imagination exercises. Look out for the exercises linked to your tarot and astrological charts for deeper insights into how these forces are playing out in your life.